So I came out here to try to find a nice place in the woods to shoot a video on muscles and muscle contraction and all that kind of stuff. And check out what I found. A bunch of deer bones. Let's check it out. There's more down here than I thought. Okay, I think that's all I can find. Let's check them out. So I was able to collect some. Obviously the whole skeleton is in here. My thought is that maybe this is a deer. I mean, that's pretty obvious that's a deer. This is a deer. My thought is that maybe, oh wait, bud. My thought is that maybe this animal died somewhere upstream. And then during the floods, through times of scavenging, the bones got pulled apart, whatever. And then during flood, because we've had a lot of rains this winter and spring, lots of flooding here, that this was high enough that it washed these bones down, lodged some of them under here, some in the kind of under this root right here, some in the debris along the creek. That seemed to be where I found them all. So there's only a few that I was able to find. There's probably more around here. If I started digging through the leaf litter, I could probably find some more. If I wandered out into the creek, I could probably find some more there too. But at least this is enough. It's really kind of cool because I'm able to tell you about the 5 different types of bones that we have in the body, which is really kind of cool. Our bodies as mammalian have the same type of skeletal design that pretty much any mammal has. So we're able to use that. The first bones I want to talk about are the flat bones. Flat bones, examples of those in your body are your ribs, like this one here, scapula, your shoulder blade, right here, your pelvis, this one right here, that's pelvis, and the skull, right there, skull. These are all flat bones. Cool thing about flat bones is that's inside of the flat bones, they have a special type of marrow that's called red marrow. The red marrow in the bones is where red blood cells are made. Every month, every 30 days or so, we have a new set of blood. You have new blood. You are fresh blood. Right? You have fresh blood. Why? Because every 30 days, your bone is cranking out new blood cells. I mean, it's in a crazy, crazy fast pace. We're talking hemoglobin molecules. We're talking like 1 billion every second. I mean, you wonder why you're tired all the time, right? Yeah, just making hemoglobin is a full-time job. So, but that's all happening in your flat bones. Your shoulder blades, skull, your sternum. Don't have any sternum bones, but your sternum, your ribs, your pelvis. That's where all that is happening, okay? Really cool stuff. The red marrow of your flat bones. All right. You also have irregular bones. Okay, so here's some example of irregular bones. You've got, this is called the atlas. The atlas is the first cervical vertebrae. This is the one that holds the skull. Here, wait. All right, so this is the one that holds the skull. So you can see these little notches, like right here and here on either side, and you can see these bumps right there and there. These are called condyles, and those condyles fit inside of those notches just like that, and that allows you to go, yes. So this is the atlas, the first cervical. It doesn't really have any kind of major regular shape. There's no other bone that's shaped this, which is why they're called the irregulars, because there's other bones really don't have the same shapes. Your sacrum right here, this is a fused series of irregular bones. Your sacral vertebrae fused into a bone called the sacrum. And then you have, like, this one is a thoracic vertebrae. There's your thoracic vertebrae. These are the ones that would hold your ribs, forming your rib cage, surrounding your thoracic cavity. So that's the thoracic vertebrae. Put these back. Here we go. By the way, these sacral vertebrae, this sacrum. It's really cool. This is the pelvis, the flat bone, right? This would be your ilium. This would be your ischium down here, and this is the pubis bone right here. Ilium, ischium, and then pubis here in the front. The ilium, that's the one that you feel like where your belt is, where your pants sit. That's your ilium right there. The sacrum actually fits, so you get that right, slides just in like that, and it literally clicks into place. And that forms what is called the pelvic girdle. This is the way that would lead toward the lumbar vertebrae, the lower back, and then the thoracic and then the head. This would be where the tail comes out. The legs would be, the back legs would be articulating from that socket right there. The femur would come out of that in a ball and socket joint. I got a femur, I'll show you in a second. But that would come out of this socket right here. All right? So we have the flat bones, we have the irregular bones. Now we have long bones. Long bones, you've got 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got 12 of them in your body. You've got your humerus, which is your upper arm. You've got the radius here on the side where your thumb is. You've got the ulna from your elbow all the way down here to where your pinky is. And then you've got your femur, which is your thigh bone. You've got your tibia, which is your shin bone. And then you've got a skinny bone just on the outside of your tibia, and that's called the fibula. If you guys have ever gone out and had chicken wings, you ever gone out, some restaurant, you get wings, right? You get the little one that looks like a drumstick, and you get the other one that you gotta suck the meat from in between the two bones, okay? Well, the little tiny drumstick one, that's the humerus of the bird, of the chicken, and the one where you gotta suck the bone from in, or the meat from in between the bones, that's the forearm of the chicken in the wing. So it's those two areas, right? The bones you're sucking from in between is the ulna and the radius. Next time you go out and have wings and you suck the meat from in between the bones, feel the bones. The one that has little tiny bumps on it is the ulna of the chicken. I probably just grossed you out. You probably never want to eat wings again. There it is. That's good stuff though. That's good stuff. So here's your femur. Okay, this is the femur. There's the ball I was talking about when I mentioned the ball and socket. So if I get the pelvis right here, you can see that that ball fits in just like that. Slides into that, allows that leg to move. Woo, gotta go all crazy. Good flexibility, nice rotation, lots of range of movement with ball and sockets. You've got your shoulder, your humerus connecting up with your scapula for a ball and socket, and you've got the femur connecting up with the pelvis for a ball and socket, right there. Now the bottom of your femur right here, you connect up with your tibia. This is the tibia, and these bones would sit together just like that. That's how they rest together, and that allows these bones to work this way. So when you're kicking a ball, boom, it goes like that. Now to help with that articulation, okay, to help with that, there's another little bone that's called a sesamoid bone. So we have flat bones, we have irregular, we have long bones, and sesamoid. The sesamoid bones are little tiny bones. There it is. Now I don't know if this one is the right one. That groove right there is called the patellar groove. The patella is your kneecap, okay? And the patella, and it doesn't look like this one fits. This is probably the wrong one. But the patella fits in and it slides up and down inside of that groove like that. But the patella is actually not, it's actually not attached to any of these bones. It's embedded in the tendon that holds your thigh muscle to your shin bone. Your thigh muscle sits here and it attaches to the shin bone right there. And this helps that tendon to come out a little bit and get a little bit better angle of pull to make you a little bit more efficient when you're out there kicking a soccer ball like that. It helps you be more efficient. So those are the sesamoid. They're not attached to other bones. They're embedded in tendons. Now, the fifth type of bone is called a short bone. And I don't have a short bone. All right. I thought I had one. I don't have one. All right, so short bones. Short bones are your carpals, your metacarpals, and your phalanges. You've got 3 phalanges in each of those and 2 phalanges there. These are your short bones. They're basically just like long bones, but they're short, which is why they're called short bones. You also have them in your ankle. You have your the tarsal bones, and then you have the metatarsal bones. That's kind of along the middle of your foot where your laces would be crossing in your tennis shoes. And then you have phalanges down there as well. So all in all, 5 different types of bone for the skeleton. You've got your flat bones, you've got your irregular bones, you've got long bones, short bones, and sesamoid. And they all have different functions. Now the skeleton as a whole actually has about 6 different functions that it does. We talked about one, and that is that it makes red blood cells. It also works with your muscles to allow movement. Your muscles have to have something to pull on. If your muscles don't pull on a bone, then if there's nothing stiff to pull on, then you're basically, anytime you contract a muscle, you're just a quivering bag of jelly, right? And you don't go anywhere. Every time you want to move, you just sit there and jiggle. And it's pointless. So you gotta have a bone. That way, when your muscle contracts, it pulls the bone, and that's what produces movement. Okay? So it produces movement. Bones or skeletons are important for movement. It also gives you not only a shape. All right, if you had turtle-shaped bones, you would not look like a person, you would look like a turtle. So it gives you your shape, it supports a lot of your organs, it also allows you to store minerals and vitamins in the marrow. You have the marrow of the long bones. You can store, it's called yellow marrow, you store vitamins in there, and of course you have calcium and other minerals stored in your bone. And then you have, let's see here, I did red blood cells, I did movement, I did form and shape, I did, what are the other ones? Storage of nutrients and protection. Your skeleton provides you protection. Your skull is an armor plate protecting your brain, your ribs are protecting your heart and lungs, your pelvis are protecting very delicate organs down there in the pelvis, just saying. So you have protection, movement, form and shape, you have storage of nutrients, you have production of red blood cells, and there's another one, I don't remember what it is. A lot of cool things though that your skeleton does. Those are the major ones. There's minor things your skeleton does as well. Anyway, skeleton, really cool organ system in the body. Your bones, by the way, are alive. Your bones are alive. They have blood flowing to them. They have nerves in them. They are a living, growing part of your skeleton, of your body. They are alive. Turtle shell, it's not an armor plating. Even in a turtle, the bone is alive. I have found ticks attached to the shells of tortoises. Yes, I kid you not. That means there's a rich enough blood supply in the bone of turtles and tortoises that even a tick can get a meal. So your bone is alive, you got to take care of it. Okay, so since I got the bones here, I thought we'd go ahead and talk about the different parts of a bone and the way that bones grow inside of your body. Okay, so this is the femur that I just showed you a second ago. All right, there's 3 major parts to this femur that I want to show you. The shaft part in the middle is called the diaphysis. The ends here and here, those are called the epiphyses. Epiphysis is singular. And then you have this line right here in the middle that separates the 2 of them. That is called the metaphysis. Now the metaphysis is actually where growth occurs. See what happens when you're ready to grow, I'll turn it that way, we'll do that one. It's a nicer line. What happens when you're ready to grow is cartilage, which is this soft squishy material, cartilage gets laid down in that little groove, that line that divides the epiphysis from the diaphysis. Okay? It gets laid down right in that little groove. Once it's laid down in that groove, it slowly pushes this bone, the epiphysis, a little bit further out, and the diaphysis a little bit further down, and it separates those two. And then once it's done that, then it replaces that cartilage with bone, with calcium and other bone-forming minerals, and it forms that bone in there, and that pushes this apart. Now that's really, really important, because what you don't want is to try to grow bone here while you're trying to move around. You see, that's a joint. You've got your tibia attached in right here, and it's got to be able to move. The kneecap, the patella, has got to be able to slide up and down that groove right there. So with those things having to move and function, you don't want to be trying to build bone in the midst of all that grinding. That's going to be miserable. So you end up laying down this bone in that crack that pushes this part further away, but it maintains the integrity of the joint while you're growing. But this is also why sometimes, especially when you hit your teenage years, your legs are outgrowing faster than your brain's ability to figure out how you're supposed to move. So you get all awkward and gangly, and you're tripping over things, and everything's just really weird. Oftentimes even, you have a little bit of joint pain, right? That's what their term growing pains comes from. It's from the fact that as these things are growing, it's exerting a force. Maybe your legs are growing faster than your hips, or your hips are growing faster than your backbone. All those things can be going on to give you a little gangly, awkward aches and pains, tripping over yourself and all that. But it's all because of the way these bones are growing to produce you, finally get you to your full height. In children and infants and children, these bones, if a child were to pass away, these bones would come apart. And that would tell scientists that this was a very young person. In the teenage years, early teenage years, you would have these bones fused together the way this one is in the deer, but they don't come apart. There's enough ossification, there's enough bone material to hold these bones together. Eventually, when you're an old person like I am, you have a lot more of these solidified, even to the point where you almost can't even see that line anymore. The metaphysis almost gets blended in with the rest of the bone. It just disappears. And that's usually for an adult, usually really an old person. Now, the younger you are, the more cartilage you have, the more flexible, bendable, and everything else, which is why young people don't break bones as often. They can fall down, they fall out of trees, they wreck on their bike, they do all kinds of things, but their bones stay fairly strong and they heal very quickly. An older person, if we were to fall, we might break a hip or a bone. It breaks really easy. A simple fall can do that because we don't have as much flexibility. We have a lot of mineral content, and those tend to make these bones brittle. Not to mention the fact that our demand of calcium and other things oftentimes produces a brittle bone because we're pulling minerals from these bones to do muscle activity and nerve activity, and we're trying to maintain our body functions, and oftentimes we pull from the bones to get the calcium that we need in order to do that. So that's why oftentimes elderly people, a fall for them is really dangerous versus a young person. And that is the parts of your bone and how your bones grow.